Welcome to the TPL Show, a podcast dedicated to the study and discussion of leadership. Join us as we share relevant, simple, and lasting methods for improvement that can be used to lead from any level in any organization.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the TPL Show. We are extremely excited for today's show. I'm here with Dave Cahill.
Hey everybody.
I'm Luke Weber, and today we have our first guest. We are doing a live interview, and his name is Tim Burgess. Tim is an executive whose career has focused on supply chain operations in the food industry, spanning dairy, vegetable, and seafood processing across Asia, North America, South America, and Europe. He's currently based in LA as the Senior Vice President of Operations at a market-leading sauce and condiment producer headquartered in Hong Kong. He was first initiated into the benefits of having a systematic approach to performance improvement by experiencing firsthand the value of Six Sigma for yield improvement in a complex environment. This started a journey of learning and development based on lean processes as developed by Toyota. He has applied lean to effect significant improvements in shop floor performance that result in material benefits to bottom line corporate performance. He has enjoyed a long relationship with David and Avanulo that has improved the lives of many and helped to transform the culture at several well-known multinational organizations. So that's a little background on Tim. Again, Tim, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Tim. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. That was a very nice introduction. I think I need to market myself just like you marketed me. Thank you.
You should let the truth speak for yourself, but that's what the interns dug up. So it's pretty.
That's right.
It's pretty cool. You're very googly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's episode we're going to cover Genchi Genbutsu, also known as the Gemba Walk. We're going to follow our usual format. We're going to do a what, why, and how. But as we mentioned before, we've got our first guest today, so we're going to have him give some experiences, give his opinions, kind of get this conversation started and go back and forth on this topic of the Gemba Walk. Okay, let's jump right into Gemba Walks. Dave, I'm going to let you kick us off. What is Gemba Walk?
Okay, so I'm really excited about this episode because this idea, this Genchi Genbutsu or Gemba Walk, is really powerful. So developed by Taichi Ono, the famous father of the Toyota production system. And what he used to do was mark circles in the floor, out on the production floor. His engineers didn't go to university. His engineers were trained by him and degreed by him as a master engineer. So these young people would study with him for a period of years to learn how to be an engineer. And he would have them go as part of their study out and stand in that circle, that kind of chalked circle on the floor, and just watch what was going on, and then come back and tell him what they observed and what they learned and what recommendations they had for improvement. So that's kind of the base set of Genchi Genbutsu, right? So, excuse me, what is a Gemba Walk? It's officially known as Genchi Genbutsu, as we've said. Commonly, people just call it a Gemba or a Gemba Walk. It's a stylized leadership method aimed at promoting continuous improvement, Kaizen, at the Gemba. And the Gemba is the place where value is added for the customer. So if we were in Japan and we just turned on a television and we were watching the news, the anchor person on the news might say, there was a terrific event in the downtown today, and we're going to cover it for you. We're going to go right now to our reporter at the Gemba. They would use the word Gemba, meaning on the scene, where it's happening. So there are many places in value streams, not necessarily just one, where we're actually doing something that adds value for the customer, that will improve the life of the customer through our product or service. And we call that very place the Gemba. So going there and doing what we're about to talk about, this stylized leadership procedure, is known as a Gemba Walk. So that's what a Gemba Walk is.
Okay, very cool.
And do you have anything to add to that? Or Tim, is there anything you want to add to this kind of definition of what a Gemba walk is?
No, that sounds right. I mean, you say stylized, and that really means proceduralized, right? It's not management by walking around, as you might have heard 30 years ago. It's a very structured approach to disciplined approach to walking the shop floor.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Okay. So
So Tim, you mentioned management by walking around.
Yeah.
So I've heard that about this before. Right? I've heard that even recently. But Tim, you think that that's something was used more often in the past as a style of Gemba, or do you think that that's still used today?
Well, I mean, it's still used today, I think, because you see people walking the shop floor in various environments, and they're essentially saying they're doing the Gemba, but they're really walking the shop floor, chatting with people. It's not formalized. Go see with purpose, ask what, when, and why, and show respect, and having an objective for what you're going to do, and having a structured approach to it that's going to have results. It's focused on a specific result or affecting a specific change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my experience too. Management by walking around, to me, that's a relationship building only thing.
Yeah, sure.
You're just kind of out there chatting people up, almost getting your ticket punch. See, I'm on the shop floor, or I care about you, as opposed to this very stylized structural approach that we see in a Gemba walk, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, so in my experience, if I've been on the floor, or if any type of management personnel has been on the floor, you kind of see morale, you see the employees, their spirits lift up a little bit, right? Because they're not used to seeing those people on the floor.
Yeah.
So I guess the management, when you say management by walking around, is that pertaining to, because I think, Dave, you mentioned it, like punching a ticket. Is that something that management personnel feel like they have to do?
No, I think it's useful, and I think we'll cover, just as a side note, there are many types of walks, right? There's a safety walk, for instance.
Yep.
There's a plant tour. There's an inspection, and there are many types of walks, and during those walks, you have a different leadership and managerial attitude. During Gemba, for instance, as we'll get into the detail, there's this very specific stylized approach that opens people up, so that you're seeing and hearing what's really going on, right, with the process. So MBWA has its place. It's just a different type of walk than the Gemba walk. Yeah,
different style. Okay, cool. All right, let's move on to why Gemba is important.
So it's the most effective way, this idea of taking the walk, it's the most effective way to reduce a leader's gap of knowledge. And this is a really big and important thing that can trip leaders up.
Yeah.
When leaders rely just on the reports of others or written documents, they can oftentimes have a very distorted view of what's actually going on. And they need to take active steps to reduce that gap of knowledge. If that gap of knowledge becomes too great, they can make decisions that are actually disastrous for the customer and for the business. So the only way to reliably reduce that gap of knowledge is go to the Gemba, go to where value is added.
Be present.
Be present often enough that your presence isn't some kind of extraordinary thing that's going to cause special causes in and of itself.
Right.
And you can see what's really going on and learn from people what's really going on and reduce that gap of knowledge. So that's the big why. Then there are a lot of little whys, right? Mm-hmm. It brings about alignment. It presents an opportunity for you to teach, to listen, to show respect, and do many other things. But the big why is to reduce your gap of knowledge, which as a leader can grow dangerously big if you find yourself distant from the Gemba.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Anything you guys want to add to expand on that?
It makes me think of a situation I had, after you and I stopped working together directly, David, obviously continued to explore TPS. And in the company that I worked for after you and I went our separate ways, one of my colleagues, a guy on my team, was friends with the top leader at the Toyota plant in Princeton, Indiana. And he was able to arrange for my team to spend a day there. One of the things I got from that, he was very generous with his time and allowed us to spend the whole day at the factory. But one of the stories that stuck with me was how he related that the CEO of Toyota, Akio Toyota, came to the plant, and when he came, they arranged for a reception for him to meet him, do presentations about their work. And after respectfully meeting the team, he thanked them very much and said, hey, he asked if they could go to the Gemba and talk about the site's performance on the shop floor. And they did that. And met with various teams on the shop floor, walked through the improvement plans that they had as part of the Toyota culture. All was going very well. But as they approached the paint system, he asked to go inside, which is a little bit unusual. But he went into the paint booths, and it was clear that he was looking for something specific. And they later learned that he was looking to see if the plant had implemented a fix on a conveyor transition in the booth. You see, the cars were hinking on a transition in a plant in Toyota City. And they had found a really simple fix, not a highly engineered fix, a simple fix, and disseminated it across the network. And the CEO was looking to see if the fix had been implemented, and it was, and Akio was very well pleased. So it's really speaking to the point that you made about learning what is actually going on the shop floor, David.
Yeah, that's a very powerful story, I think, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a technique, so to speak, that an executive only can use. A supervisor who's managing across several shifts,
anyone,
can do this. So this alignment that it can bring, it makes it a very, very powerful leadership tool. So as people that aspire to be leaders or are leaders incorporate this, and it does take some practice to incorporate this kind of stylized approach and make it your own, so to speak, as they do that, they really extend their leadership reach. It's a very, very effective tool to make you a more powerful, effective leader, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, so that's the why, right?
Yep.
All right. So you want to talk a little bit about the how?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So that's it's pretty interesting because the devil's in the details. And the first and most important thing, in my opinion, is you got to accept that your gap of knowledge is almost always too high and that you're going to use Gemba to reduce it. Yeah. Right? So you got to kind of, it's a tude. This thing has got some, specific steps or procedural steps, as Tim mentioned, but it's also an attitude. You've got to adopt this attitude, this, beginner's mind, so to speak, and accept that your gap of knowledge is almost always too high. And that can happen quickly if you are absent from the Gemba for a while. Right. It can become high again and so forth. And that you're going to use Gemba to reduce it. And then the second thing is to keep the four purposes of Gemba in mind. So just in a generic way, the generic purposes, you're out there to gain knowledge about what's actually happening, reduce that gap of knowledge, right? You're there to engage people at the Gemba in critical thinking, to challenge them in a very positive and healthy way. You're there to teach about the importance of increasing value and reducing waste at the Gemba. And you're there to facilitate improvement. So these are kind of the four things that you're keeping in mind generically as you're making a Gemba walk. And then, of course, each time you walk, you can have a very specific purpose that you can channel these four generic purposes through, right? So the next thing is to embrace the essence of this and use it to lead effectively. So that's 3 steps. The whole approach has got 3 steps. Go see, ask why, show respect. And you heard Tim say that early on, right? Because he's a practicer of this, so it's kind of embedded in his thinking. So go and see. So first, observe and understand what's actually happening. Then ask why without judgment. And there are lots of techniques to learn about
That's
this.
important. Yeah.
So you do this in a general way by always asking about the process and never asking about the people. As soon as you start asking about people, then it's just in our hearts as human beings, we become defensive, the screens go up, and the gap of knowledge returns, because you're not going to break that gap of knowledge down if you don't make this connection with the people at the Gemba, right? So we ask why without judgment. We refer to the process. We stay very centered on the process. Yeah. If you focus on results, people interpret that as you're focusing on the people. Sure. Same effect, and it tends to close people up, and then your gap of knowledge goes up again. So you come out, you observe, then you ask why in a non-judgmental way, and there are some techniques to do that.
So it's not okay. So real quick on the ask why, right? So it's not only just asking the why question. It's also just, there could be other questions involved here, right? So you can go deeper, you can go into different areas without just constantly asking why. It's just asking a bunch of questions, right?
Right.
Just trying to obtain knowledge without passing judgment, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, why did that happen? But it's just like, okay, well, here's the next question. Or, okay, so if that happened, what do you think about this? And it's just, what do you think made that happen before? Or did it happen recently? Or, just getting additional information.
I mean, you're asking when questions. You're asking...
it's questions in general.
What questions and so forth. But the reason that we say ask why is because we're getting to the root of the matter, right? So we're asking lots of questions. So for instance, a technique we can use. So we teach Gemba. Our organization teaches the Gemba Walk process to people, and we actually certify them and so forth, right? And we teach many techniques. One is the Socratic method of asking questions, the 6 phases of the Socratics. Another is the leadership kata from the Toyota production system. What is the target condition? What is the actual condition now? What obstacles do you think are preventing you from reaching that target condition? What's your next step? What's your next plan, do, check, assess, experiment, right? And when can we go and see what results we got from that? So we teach people a variety of techniques, and they can develop their own, but you have to create a leadership approach here that lets you uncover through questioning what's going on without putting people on the defensive, right? So that's this idea. So we go see, ask why, and then the third thing, show respect.
Show respect.
This idea of show respect is so often minimized, and it's so important. So a lot of times when we think about show respect, it's like, good morning. Say good morning to people when you that kind
cordial,
of thing. And that's be polite.
Sure.
Or be cordial, as you said, right? So this idea of show respect has 2 key elements to it. The first is to acknowledge that the people at the Gemba have a profound understanding of the process. Acknowledge that.
Of course.
And then the second thing is to act upon that fact. So as they're telling you things, act upon it. Take it seriously, right? That's respect. First, to acknowledge their profound understanding, and second, to act upon the understanding that they have. One or the other is not respect. Both together is respect. And that's what we mean, and what Taichi Ono meant, and the practitioners of the Gemba Walk mean when they talk about this third element, show respect. And that's really, really powerful. So I'm going to zip it for a minute and let you guys weigh in on that.
Yeah. Tim, share, if you can, share some of your experiences with going to the floor or doing Gemba Walks, whether it's something that you've done yourself or you've been a part of in recent organizations, but just share a little bit about that if you can.
Sure. Be happy to. Just before we do that, though, I wanted to reflect on a little bit on what David just said. In a prior podcast, you guys talked about an interactive style whereby you ask a question, and while you're asking the question, you're formulating a response, and you're really asking a question to give you an opportunity to show how smart you are and to make a point.
What not to do.
Yeah, and it's really hard because as leaders, let's face it, as leaders, we have ego, right? We're in a leadership position partially because we're confident and we have capability. But if you're on the shop floor and you are, it's apparent that you really aren't there to gain an understanding of that profound understanding that folks on the shop floor have, and that you're really just trying to show how smart you are and how much power you have. It's just completely destructive, and you'll never create the kind of environment that you're trying to create through this.
Oh my gosh, that's
huge.
That's true. So this idea of it's hard for us, especially Western leaders, when someone's talking, to kind of empty our minds and just listen. Instead of formulating the response.
You can see it happening on their faces too.
Yeah.
If somebody asks me a question and I'm trying to give them an answer, you can see their face kind of just go in this blank stare, and it's almost like a withdrawn state. We're like, okay, you're not even listening to me.
Yeah.
Okay, just go ahead and keep talking because I know you have something else to say.
Oh my gosh. It was so hard for me to beat that out of me. I still have, I do like listen to the Daily Calm every day and meditate for 10 minutes to empty my mind, to keep practicing. And, Dave's great thoughts keep leaking in. I'm like, shut up. Stop thinking. Right. So this is a very important thing. So as you are out there, if you're doing that, man, you're going to kill this thing. Sure. Right. Yeah. Oh,
it comes back to the whole premise of practicing leadership.
Yeah.
Right. Because these are the small things that if you practice doing, it becomes more natural to you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because these are things that happen naturally, the opposite way of what we want them to be. Right.
Yeah. So sometimes what's natural is not what's most effective.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That's very true.
The point, the question that you asked initially in terms of experience, as I'm kind of going away from your focus right now, but as leaders, one of the key responsibilities we have really is to identify high potential leaders, identify the next the next cadre of leadership, and identify where there are problems in terms of leadership. And we use different ways of observing that for ourselves, but the Gemba is doing Gemba Walks when you're not leading, right? When you're just participating as a leader and allowing frontline leaders or others to do the leadership is really helpful. I had an opportunity to do that in a factory with a process engineer was doing the walk, and through subsequent interactions really learned that she had a deep understanding of the cultural environment that we were trying to create, and had a deep technical understanding as well. And that allowed me to advocate for her promotion and being exposed to different opportunities. And she eventually went from process engineer to ops leader to plant manager to she actually eventually ran our European operations at one of the company I was with. And on the flip side, I mean, I've been in an environment, David, with someone that you and I worked with a while ago, where there was an installation going on, a capital installation going on, and we did the walk with an engineer that was leading the installation. And I had a very positive impression of this engineer, but watching the engineer interact with the technicians and the tradesmen on the shop floor, I was astounded at both his lack of understanding of what was actually going on and his way of interacting. Because the way he interacted with me and with our colleagues was very respectful and very appropriate, but there was a shift in his way of working when he was dealing with, skilled tradesmen,
right?
That was completely separated from the culture we were trying to create. So it can go both ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. This idea of it's a leadership development tool that you can use to develop other leaders as well as to be an effective leader yourself I think is a very valuable point to make. Yeah,
big. I never thought about like that, to be honest, but that's very important.
Yeah. So we're going through the how-to, right? And we did accept that your gap of knowledge, your GOK, is almost always too high. and you're going to use Gemba. And we went through the 4 purposes of Gemba, the kind of 4 generic purposes that you can use to plan your specific visit and so forth. And we talked about this idea of embrace the essence of Gemba, go see, ask why, and show respect. So the next how-to is to keep Gemba separate from other types of walks. So there are these many other types of walks. There's safety walks. So we have a process in Avenulo we call Gestalt safety. So there's a Gestalt walk. There's management by walking around. There's a plant tour. There's an inspection. There's visitors tour, right? So forth and so on. So there's these other types of walks that you're going to involve yourself in as a leader, but Gemba is separate from that. So for instance, don't be doing inspection-like approaches or have an inspection-like tude on a Gemba walk. And what our clients will often do is have kind of a different color hat. So a place that Tim and I were at in the past, when they had their blue hat on, bump cap, their blue bump cap on, the leaders did, everyone knew it was a Gemba walk. It was not an inspection. And it had a specific approach and specific questions, all that kind of thing. Everyone was trained in the facility what a Gemba was, what it meant, what we were trying to accomplish. And so...
did you see a different interaction with that?
Oh, heavens, yeah, I did. Yeah. People would be very open, knowing that they weren't being judged. Yeah. They weren't being assessed. It wasn't being recorded for some kind of audit.
So they're just more receptive to it.
Sure.
Versus, here comes another inspection. They're checking out what we're doing.
Yeah, and of course you can't violate that. You got to keep it separate. Do you have anything about that, Tim? You want to share with us?
No, my experience is the same, and I mean there were other colored hats. So red hat, I think, was the Gestalt hat. Right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So people would know what the expectations would be clear. I mean, you guys had discussions beforehand about what you were going to do, and what you set the framework for the attitude beforehand. So you have to really do kind of an attitude adjustment before you enter on one of these things to get your mind in the right place to make it successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So this idea of, keep Gemba walk separate, right? And then the next how-to that we should cover quickly is the idea of the 8 tips for Gemba. So we have this structure for Gemba, as everyone does, right? And we have these 8 tips. One is have a purpose for the walk, a specific purpose. Yeah. So we're going to go out to the shop floor and we're going to look at scrap, or we're going to look at a particular customer problem, whatever it might be. Have a specific purpose and use those 4 generic purposes to strengthen it, but have a specific purpose. That's the first tip. The second is communicate with the team before the walk. And lots of people push back on this. But then they'll get everything ready. They'll make it all neat. They'll operate really well. And my answer is, yeah. How is that bad? How's that bad? And if you're out there often enough, it just becomes normal, right? So communicate. Don't just show up. When you show up, it creates an inspection mindset, and the gap in knowledge goes down. So communicate before the walk that you're coming. Pay attention to the handoffs. So the places where one machine hands off product to another, where one service person hands the customer off to another service person, where things move from being actively processed to being stored, that kind of thing. Right. That's always provides opportunity for a rich understanding about what's going on in the process. Focus on the process, not the people. We said that earlier on, right? Ask lots of questions in lots of different ways, not all just why questions, right? Document what you see and learn with savvy. This is interesting. So this technique means don't bring a notebook or a clipboard.
I was going to bring that up because I don't think we talked about that previously, but obviously one of these tips is documenting.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the walk, don't have anything with you.
Don't have anything with you, because as soon as you do, boom, it's an audit.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
You plan in advance. You put some time on the calendar to plan in advance of the walk. Go through these steps, and we have little worksheets and stuff you can use to help you plan, right? You plan in advance, and then you go out there hands-free, and you conduct your Gemba Walk. You start at the front end of the process, you go to the back end, you look, you observe, ask questions, go see, ask why, show respect, all that. Yep. But the document with savvy means as soon as you're done, you have a plan at the other end where you spend some time sitting quietly and writing down what you learned, what you saw, what you want to follow up on. You don't just run off to the next meeting. You have this all planned, right? Yep. So the next is don't criticize or suggest changes during the walk. But what about safety? Well, of course, if there's something that's imminently going to hurt someone, then you intervene as gently as possible to ensure no one's harmed. Sure. But as a general rule, you don't criticize or suggest any changes during the walk. Or boom, defensive screens go up, gap of knowledge goes down, right? And then the last one is follow up. And this follow up is very interesting. So it's hard for leaders to do this piece, but just pick one thing, just one. Maybe two. No, just one. Just pick one thing and follow up really well on that one thing and come back often and pick one more thing and follow up. Remember, all this stuff was going on completely without your intervention for heaven knows how long before you pick one thing and get that all the way resolved for people. And then another thing. And over time, you'll have moved the mountain. Yeah. Right? But the worst thing is pick 10 things and not follow up and get all jumbled up and confused and and so forth. And then the last how-to is we highly recommend that you have your leaders become certified as Gemba walkers. So we have a certification process. They receive the training. They have to read some literature, discuss that literature. They do some practice walks, and then so many walks that are recorded within a time frame, and then they have to kind of pass a review, if you will, and boom, they're a certified walker, right? And this really augments leadership skills. Perfect. This is way more powerful than sending people to, kind of just soft skill leadership training alone with no follow-up or no connection to the floor, et cetera. So that's the last how-to.
Okay. Tim, you were, when Dave was talking about the, picking one thing, were you holding up 3 fingers? Did I see 3 fingers?
Can't help yourself, Can't help yourself. Yeah. So no, you're right. The one is the right way to do it. Is to grab one thing and kill it. Go take it all the way to closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you gave me the floor. Let me. A thought came to mind as you were talking. So you're right. There are a number of different Gemba Walk types, right? The principles are the same. The objectives are sometimes different. And that idea that you propone to reduce the gap of knowledge as a key is really important. And I found an application for that surprised me, and that was related to ERP implementations. When you do an ERP implementation, the first step is to evaluate or understand the as-is situation, to do that upfront work before the development really starts. Right. And doing, again, we're thinking about it on the shop floor, but even in the office environment, in many situations where there are processes, obviously you can use it, but I found it particularly helpful when you're taking that just open-ended, trying to understand what the actual situation is, rather than as often is the case in an ERP, you're documenting in a conference room with the as is. But just it's same principle, different objective.
Yeah. This is hugely important. This idea of Gemba isn't just for the shop floor, right? It's inside of processes, in offices, in commercial systems, on the road with the salesperson. It's the same thing. It's going to this place where value is added and reducing your gap of knowledge with a procedural approach that's partly structured and partly your personal approach to leadership, right? That really lets you effectively understand what's going on and impact the situation in a very, very positive way. And it could literally be you're sitting next to the pilot in a plane, or you're in a hospital while there's a procedure going on, or you're on the shop floor, or just any place at all. This is a key leadership tool no matter where you are. Right?
I like it. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one other thing I want to mention before we wrap up or hear any final examples, and that is you can link this back. I won't take the time to do it extensively now, but you can link this back through lean tools, lean approaches, operational excellence models, and so forth. Yep. It becomes a pillar in any one of these, even agile, and any one of these kind of improvement methodologies. This becomes a pillar that you can plug in into that larger system. And of course, some things that ride alongside of it, for instance, the 5 truths of improvement, right? Yep. So you can use the 5 truths of improvement as a questioning model, so to speak. So what is the process that we're looking at here? And what is it designed to deliver versus what's its intention? Who has authority over it? And why are they allowing this particular configuration or this particular design? And what are the reasons in play, the stated reasons and the real reasons, and so forth and so on. So you can find ways to work on all that through applying Gemba.
So it's like a template that you could use.
Sure you can. So Gemba plugs in well, the idea of a Gemba Walk plugs in well to whatever system you're using. It doesn't usurp it. It enriches it, augments it, and fits well. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that's good.
Is there anything else that we can share about Gemba today before we wrap it?
One of the engagements that we had, David, you applied that, you implemented that that concept that had really a transformational impact on the organization. Big facility, multi levels, new site leader, and we implemented, or you and your team and the site team implemented a number of improvement efforts around safety, around quality, around cost. But I think that Gemba, the Gemba Walk concept, cutting across all of them, it's a standard tool that you can just pick up and use in any number of environments. It's just it can be transformational. It really can be.
Yeah, I remember well the occasion you're speaking about, and for instance, there was some mistrust. There was mistrust between people at the Gemba and people leading, and as they practiced this, they had Gemba Walk centers, kind of bulletin boards and so forth up, and they'd see who took the walks, when the walks were taken, what was the one thing that came out of the walk, and was it addressed or not addressed, and everyone could see it. And everyone understood what was going on, and it healed a lot of the trust issues, and brought people closer together, aligned them, and created not only a closer, better working environment, but camaraderie and trust went up as a result, right? So and it had a good impact on the business. So this idea of it can go across many fields and processes and kind of plug in and support. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the result for sure. So
it's good.
So that's Gemba. That's Gemba Walks. Genchi Genbutsu. Go to the Gemba. Reduce your gap of knowledge. It is a stylized approach. It does take some practice, but in essence, it's this. Go there.
Yeah.
And see for yourself. Ask why in a non-defensive way and show respect. Acknowledge the profound understanding people have at that Gemba and act upon it. And that is transformational to your business. Tim, thanks for being with us today. Tim, we really appreciated your input.
No, it was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. You guys are doing great work. So thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Tim.
Thank you.
It means a lot. Everybody, thanks for listening today. Be sure to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it's Spotify, Apple, online, downloading our episodes, whatever it is. Please leave us a review, share it, get the word out, help us distribute our episodes to those that might want to hear it. And we will see you on the next episode.
We'll see you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the TPL Show. We hope you'll apply what you learned today and tell us how it went. If you want to share, want more information, or have questions, please contact us at info@tplshow.org. Have a great day.